Welcome, everyone, to this first panel that we are discussing diet and its relationship to pain and prevention, injury prevention, plus mental health and focus for clarinetists. And that's a long title, but I think that all of the areas that are in this title are really important for being our best as a performing artist and feeling our best. And if we have issues with pain and mental health focus and like injuries that keep coming back, we have to look at a deeper problem, perhaps something that's more than getting a massage or taping our finger because it hurts. So what I wanted to do is have our individual panelists give a little bit of their story and take from this question for themselves what they have done to address these issues, because we are all different. And what's exciting is that we can learn from artists who have overcome very difficult problems. And I was really excited that Mary Alice Druhan invited us to be on this panel so we could have a discussion. And what we'll do is have each panelist talk for 10 minutes. And then at the end, we will have a time for questions and discussion. So let's start with Dr. Saba Jevtik-Somle. And if you wanted to go ahead and start and tell us a little bit about your perspective.
Hi, good morning to everyone. Good evening, some parts of the world. As Kathryne said, we are all different. It's actually not different with me too. With the way I started really researching and going into the health side of performance, clarinet playing, was about 6 years ago in 2015, when I was preparing for a not just a couple of larger scale concerts, and I really wanted to overcome, first of all, some of the voices in my head that were really active and really loud at the time. And also I wanted to focus or taper my energy and all that I have, bodily, mentally, spiritually, into the performance setting, which included really looking at what I'm eating, what I'm drinking, when I do those. And the good thing, as I was researching, I came across a book by Dr. Don Green, and I'm going to show it up. So Performance Success, that's what it's called. And Dr. Green has trained many musicians on the East and the West Coast, also athletes and military personnel. And I received a treasure of tricks and knowledge about how to prepare for performance and what to look for. So this was the book that I went by as I was preparing for these performances. I don't know if you guys know what is centering. One of the key moments of the book is centering, which is basically focusing your breath and then focusing your attention into your best, what you can provide onto the performance. This is usually, if you're a little bit advanced in centering, it is exercise. It can be as short as a couple of seconds. If you're not as experienced in that, you need more time for your brain to adjust, then it might take 2 or 3 minutes before performance. In any case, centering gives you the mental focus that will help you to achieve maximum performance outlet as you deal with your thoughts, deal with the circumstances, deal with upcoming difficulties that you might not have seeing those unforeseen things that might happen. You know, when you're playing a performance right on stage and someone starts practicing the trumpet just below the stage and it leaks through, and it should not throw you off from your performance. So centering goal helps deal with those things. And then there's a 3-week program that I did quite a few times, taking from this book. It's called a tapering. You start really working 3 weeks before the performance, day by day, what you do, what you eat, how much rest you get. Now, Dr. Green tells us that it is very important and crucial 2 days into the performance, what we eat and how we sleep. He tells us that sleep has a profound effect on our performance. 2 nights before the performance, that is the most important sleep we can get for the performance. And that is actually what we'll gain a lot of mental health and energy from. He also tells in the book that what we eat, the carbo or the carbs, 2 days and a day before will be the main source of energy that we'll be working on. And then we have to use that energy into performance. Also very valuable insight I gained from these exercises is what I eat. So he said in the book that we need to carbo load our diet, and then we need to get sleep 2 days, extra sleeps, an hour extra sleep 2 days before that, including naps during the day, that will really help to retain the energy level that we have gained prior to 2 days prior to performance, as well as focus that energy onto the performance. We need to restrict the amount of sugar we take in, getting closer to the performance. And the regular drinking water, at least 4 times 8 ounces of water, and that's the minimum. Now, he also tells us that if we have the performance in the morning, then we should really stop drinking water 2-3 hours before the performance, and stop eating before the performance. If something is needed, that's something else. But if you really want to focus the body's performance, then we should really stop eating and drinking 2-3 hours before the performance, so that the body retains the amount of energy and it's not thrown off by digesting for the performance. Also, I might bloat after I eat, so it really helped me not bloat right before the performance or during the performance, if I stopped eating 2-3 hours. The other thing is calming the body 1 hour into going to bed in the last 2 days. Really, you just go, not doing exercising in the evening, doing the exercises more in the afternoon and in the morning. Doing exercise in the evening doesn't calm the body, and it doesn't help you get the best sleep you can get. Since when we sleep, obviously we're advised to sleep 8 hours. On the week of performance, Dr. Green suggests to have 10 hours of sleep. That might be 9 hours sleep during the night and hours of nap during the day. There might be a mixture of that, but really to have 10 hours sleep during the night so that we preserve and conserve energy. Dr. Green researched also that the best sleep we can get is about 8-9 hours sleep on a general level. And it's because we need the REM sleep cycle to be included into our sleeping habits. The REM cycle comes between the 7th and 8th hours of sleep. And if you don't have that for a week, then our body, our brain would go crazy. So we really need the REM sleep. And this is also a main source of mental health that we can gain from. So doing these routines, and there's a lot more to that, but I have limited time to talk about that. So doing these routines are very not strict. It's somewhat flexible, but it's strict in the sense what we do each day, 3 weeks prior to the performance, really helped me gauge my energy level, really prepared my body for the performance, and I really performed superior mentally, bodily. Absolutely. Performance seemed like an hour performance seemed like really a breeze to me. It didn't put mental or physical strain of my body. And I could, by centering and doing some mental simulation and then focusing day by day, leading up to the performance, 3 weeks prior to that, it really shut out or dealt with the thoughts, negative thoughts that might come up in a nervous situation or in a situation that is unforeseen that might just throw you up from a regular routine before or during the performance. That was one of my things that I dealt with, just question thoughts during the performance. So I really needed to focus my mental energy on the performance, and I absolutely did great. Absolutely. So these are just very, very few things that I can share in like 10 minutes, so we don't run out of time. And obviously, in the Q&A session, I can answer more if there's more question about this. But and again, I show this book, Performance Success. I gained many invaluable insights about health and diet and routines and also mental health.
Okay, thank you so much, Saba. We are going to move to Dr. Michael Gersten. He has a totally different perspective because he's struggled with Crohn's disease, and that's something that is very serious for your health, and it can affect every function of your body. And so we're going to get a whole different story. So let's hear from you, Mike, and see what you can focus on for our audience.
All right. Well, thank you. And let me know if you have trouble hearing me or anything. But let's see, where did I just put my notes? There we go. Sorry, I got my computer all messed up. Anyway, I've always been interested in diet and how it affects us. When I was younger, I was a competitive runner. I was not nearly as good as I thought I was, but I took it very seriously. And so I was very interested in how diet helps performance. It was interesting listening to Saba talk because I think of us as clarinetists as athletes, right? Everything we do involves muscles. And what he was talking about is how many athletes prepare for competition. And so it's interesting to see those parallels. I got even more interested though in how diet affects us after I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And this was about 11 years ago now. I was in grad school. And it through that, I learned a lot. And I don't want to talk too much about my own personal experiences because not everyone here has Crohn's disease, but I think there are things I've learned from that, and a lot of the research I've done that's applicable And so that's what I want to share. That being said, if anyone does want to hear about my experience with Crohn's disease, and if you're not familiar, Crohn's disease is an autoimmune disorder, chronic, there's no cure. And it's where your body, like other autoimmune disorders, your body's immune system attacks your own body. With Crohn's disease, it's the intestines, but with MS, it's the nervous system. There are different types of autoimmune diseases. And while I'm not going to linger on that, if you want me to discuss anything specific about my experiences with Crohn's, you can bring that up during the Q&A part of this, and I'd be happy to share. I'm not embarrassed or shy about sharing my experiences if I think it'll help other people. I also want to make clear that, I'm not a medical professional, right? So I'm not giving medical advice. I'm sharing my experiences, and I'm sharing things I've learned from doing research. Obviously, if you have any medical concerns, start with your doctor. I do want to share, I'm going to put this in the chat, a document just with some of the research I found that I've used for what I'm talking about. If you've never read a scientific article before, it can be a little disorienting. I suggest just read the abstract and maybe the conclusion, and that gives you some good information. All right, so let's see. So we know, first I want to start talking about mental health and the effect that both diet and a chronic illness can have on mental health. And we know that there's a connection between diet and mental health. There was a study in 2017 from a group of European researchers, and they looked at 24 different cohort studies, which is 24 different studies where they took a group of people and studied them over a period of time. And they found that adherence to a high quality diet, regardless of the type of diet, but a high quality diet was associated with a lower risk of depression and depressive symptoms over time. There have been clinical studies that have shown that a potential relationship between diets with a high glycemic load, diets high in sugar, high in simple carbohydrates, with increased depressive symptoms in healthy volunteers. And so there's a lot of evidence to suggest that there's this connection between depression and diet. And, anybody who researches this will say that correlation is not causation, right? Just because we see these changes doesn't mean there's a cause, but it's very compelling. And, that's something I certainly try to keep in mind, especially, all the time, but especially when I'm in a particularly stressful time in my life, when you have a performance coming up or an audition or finals week is coming up. We tend to go towards comfort foods, which for me is anything sweet. And of course, this tells us that's just going to compound your problems, the stress, and then this unhealthy diet. So I try to make that conscious decision based on this research to focus on a high quality diet. And I do want to say what a high quality diet is. There has been research on that's looked at, the Mediterranean diet, the specific carbohydrate diet, the Japanese diet, and basically found, they're all good, because what they have in common is they're very low on processed foods, lots of fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, very low in sugar and especially saturated fat. And so essentially, if you're, generally speaking, those types of diets have been correlated with better mental health. And so I think that's, something we can all keep in mind when we're thinking about our emotional well-being. I've also found that, having a pre-existing condition like Crohn's disease, one, it keeps me from absorbing nutrients like I should. And so sometimes even when I am eating well, I have to take extra vitamins, or I've had to get B12 injections. And so that's a reason to see a doctor regularly, go in for your yearly checkup so they can make sure you're getting all the nutrients you need. But, it also lets you know that you could do everything right, but there could be something else wrong with your body. Also with my Crohn's, I get flare-ups around stressful times. And so it's almost guaranteed when I have a big performance, I'm going to have a flare-up. And so focusing on my diet, that gives me something I can control, right? I can't control the temperature in the performance hall. I can't control how I'm, if I'm going to have a cold or not. But one thing I can do to limit stress is focus on my diet, because I can control what I eat. And then just very quickly, I want to just mention how pre-existing conditions impact your overall health and pain. A lot of conditions are either caused by or the result of inflammation, chronic inflammation. Before I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, it was the weirdest thing. I'd wake up some mornings and half my face would be swollen, only half. It almost looked like I had a stroke because I couldn't move, like half of my mouth. And then finally, when I was diagnosed, I asked my gastroenterologist if it's related, and he says yes, because even though the inflammation starts in the gut, inflammation breeds inflammation. And so when I have flare-ups, I feel arthritic. There's, every part of your body is connected. So if you have a chronic illness or any illness at all, it can affect other parts of your body, and that affects us as clarinetists. Thankfully, research has shown that the diets that are best for reducing inflammation, or at least the diets that don't contribute to inflammation as much, are also the diets that have been shown to help with mental health. And so if you focus on that, especially avoiding, processed food, sugar, things like that, it tends to help with inflammation. And the other thing I left out is research has shown that diets high in sugar and fat actually erode the lining of your gastrointestinal tract, and that allows your body's immune system to interact with your gut microbiome. And that's bad because it kills off a lot of the good bacteria that you have in your gut. And so avoiding, not cutting it out totally, we can all treat ourselves, but avoiding a diet high in sugar and fat can help that. And I just want to say two quick things before I'm done with all of this. And these are things I had to come to terms with. One, you can do everything right and still get sick. There are genetics, there are things you can't control. Right? You can, but if you focus on taking care of yourself, if you focus on your diet, it reduces those risks. But nobody should feel like if they get sick, if they get injured, it was automatically something they did. And that was, a mental health thing I had to come to terms with. And the other is what works for you might not work for someone else. And this happened to me. I was diagnosed with Crohn's, and people said, oh yeah, my uncle had that, and all he had to do was this. And then I try it, and I feel worse. These things are very personal, and so just don't take that upon yourself. Don't carry that weight with you. Do the best you can. Listen to the advice of medical professionals, and you can't control the rest.
Thank you so much, Michael. And I'm glad to have some contrasting discussion here, because we're all individuals, and we all have an individual journey, and we all come to knowledge in different ways and different resources. And I think it does sound that, just even from the first two stories, that every person is going to find answers that work for themselves personally. So let's move on to Dr. Rebecca Rishin. Thank you, Rebecca, for joining us, and I'm glad you're able to share.
Thank you very much, Kathryne. I'm honored to be on this panel today with my fellow panelists and with Ms. Pirtle. I'm a professional clarinetist and professor at Ohio University. You probably know me from my book, For the End of Time, the story of the Messiaen Quartet. So as you gather, I also like writing. I'm here, and I have become knowledgeable about pain in performance as a result of my own unfortunate experience with tendonitis in both arms. And believe it or not, this didn't happen from playing the clarinet. This happened from excessive computer use. So beware. The first time it happened was in 2000, when I was ferociously typing up my tenure dossier for Ohio University. Then I had numerous flare-ups after that, and then another one some years later when I was typing up my dossier for promotion to full professor at Ohio University. So since then, I've had to be just ultra vigilant about how I use my hands and my arms, because unfortunately, once you've been injured, you become susceptible to flare-ups. So you just have to watch it. For many years, it never occurred to me to look into the effect of diet and nutrition on these overuse injuries I was having. I relied on physical therapy, massage, ice, ultrasound, paraffin wax treatments. I did strengthening exercises. I actually got PRP injections, which are platelet-rich plasma injections, which are an alternative to cortisone, but which are unfortunately super expensive. I spent a lot of money on medical expenses because PRP injections are not covered by insurance. But I wanted to avoid cortisone because of its possible weakening effect on the tendons. I also, before I even got into diet, just became ultra vigilant of the way I use my hands and arms. I use voice control and dictation on my MacBook Pro. If you have a PC, you can use Dragon Dictate software. I use the dictation function on my iPad and iPhone so that I don't use the stylus, no typing, no use of a mouse, touchpad or trackball, anything. I have a food processor so that when I cook, I don't have to chop. When I write, I use gel pens rather than ballpoint pens or pencils, because those can put extra pressure on the hands. But for years, I just was getting all this physical therapy for these flare-ups and watching my everyday routine. And I had no idea that diet and nutrition can have an effect. Then one year, I came upon a great discovery. I'm originally from San Francisco, California, so I go there frequently to visit my family. And upon the recommendation of an orthopedist, I found the most amazing doctor. His name is Dr. Robert Markison, and he's a renowned hand surgeon and the co-founder of the Clinic for the Health of Performing Artists at University of California, San Francisco, which is one of the top hospitals in the United States. And on top of that, he's a specialist in overuse injuries. And to top it all off, he's an amateur clarinetist. So I just hit the gold mine. I hit the jackpot with finding this doctor. And even though my problems weren't related to the clarinet, they of course affected the clarinet, because if I was getting pain from typing or whatever it may be, you know, that would affect my, my clarinet playing. And in addition to the numerous tips he gave me, he told me that a gluten-free diet can be enormously helpful because gluten is an inflammatory agent. Gluten is the thing that's in wheat, basically. So anything you eat that has wheat in it, whether it's bread, cookies, cake, pasta, that contains gluten. And so you have to be careful because gluten is an inflammatory agent and that can therefore cause inflammation. So he prescribed a gluten-free diet. At first, you know, it was very hard, you know, because I love my bagels, I love my muffins, I love my pasta, I love my cake and my cookies. It was very hard to give those things up. But over time, I got used to it. And there are actually a number of, you know, quite a few gluten-free things you can buy at the grocery store, and quite a few good gluten-free cookbooks that you can make delicious recipes with. He also told me the importance of certain vitamins. You know, a lot of vitamins, you have to be careful with supplements because some of them are cheap and you pay for them, but they don't really work. He said that for, you know, tendinitis, vitamin D is very important. But unfortunately, it's only absorbed well as a liquid. So he prescribed something called Drop of Sunshine, which costs $10. You can find it on Amazon. And you take 5,000 units of that every day, and it lasts a really long time. I'm happy to put that in the chat. So I take vitamin D. He also prescribed coenzyme Q10. You can also get that. That helps with inflammation as well. You can get that on Amazon. It's called Qnol, and it comes in a liquid. He also prescribed a daily vitamin, but rather than a pill, he prescribed this powder because vitamins are best absorbed in a powder concentration. And I'm happy to put that in the chat. That's also available on Amazon. And it's called Nature's Plus Source of Life Energy Shake. And you just mix that into yogurt or a smoothie every morning. And in addition to giving you more energy without, you know, the harmful effects of caffeine or other things, it has tons of vitamins and nutrients. He also emphasized, as our previous panelists have, the importance of staying hydrated. I'm a big caffeine drinker. I used to drink coffee every morning, but I later had to switch to tea because I found the coffee was irritating my stomach. And it was a problem when I was traveling because if I had too little caffeine, I wouldn't feel great. And if I had too much caffeine, I wouldn't feel great. And I found when I traveled, I never knew how many, you know, teaspoons or tablespoons of coffee they were putting in the coffee maker. So I never knew how much coffee to drink. So I switched to tea. That way I can bring my own tea bags with me. I know it sounds very anal retentive, but it really works. And tea has tons of antioxidants like coffee, so it's very healthy. but you do have to be careful because caffeine is dehydrating. So you really have to be sure that if you have caffeine, you also drink a lot of water. And I like buying the types of unflavored water that, have electrolytes in them, because those also help with hydration. But, as I said, this doctor I found in San Francisco was just a gold mine. I had no idea before I met him that nutrition could have effect on tendonitis or any other type of overuse injury. But probably the thing that's helped me most is to just be careful about how I use my arms. I never type, I never use a mouse or a trackball or a touchpad or a stylus. I always use voice activated software, and I'm just careful with what I do. Unfortunately, I'm not able to play tennis or racquetball or basketball or volleyball. I have to swim or jog because I want to be sure that I don't injure my arms any further. So, it's been a learning experience, but the nice thing about it is, since I'm a professor, it's helped with my teaching, so that if I have a student who has an overuse injury, I can give them advice. So that's been enormously helpful. So it was a misfortune, but, it was a learning experience. So as I said, I'd be happy to put the names of those vitamins, et cetera, on in the chat so that you can get them from Amazon if you're interested. So yeah, that's about me, basically. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And I wanted to join the conversation because I think all of the stories of everybody here are really powerful. I have a story that I think is very worth sharing. When I was 42, I suffered a severe digestive disorder. I had chronic diarrhea, and I really did not know if I would survive. I'm going to be 64 in a couple days, so this was a while back. But before that, I had chronic pain for 25 years. I remember going to auditions and having to lay on ice cubes. I shared this with the panelists, and just the pain would be all over the place. But I ate a very, very healthy diet. I didn't eat a lot of sugar. I, was eating fruits and vegetables. And I followed, healthy eating suggestions. At the time, it was low fat, high fiber. But as time progressed, and I was getting massage therapy, I was getting every kind of therapy. None of these therapies that I got really cured anything. And so when I started developing this chronic diarrhea problem, I was like, I'm really sick, and my healthy diet is not working. In fact, I did a blood type diet for a while, and that seemed to help. But I did cut out wheat and gluten. I found that I was not tolerating that. That helped a lot. But 6 months after doing those two things, type O diet, leaving out gluten, I had chronic diarrhea. And so I was kind of like, all right, what do I eat? And how can I go on like this? Because I was really weak. I didn't know if I would survive. Well, I was grateful to learn about a book called Patient Heal Thyself by Dr. Jordan Rubin, and he had Crohn's disease. And what he did is he turned to a diet of literally completely natural diet from farms. He was getting goat milk from pasture-raised animals, all pastured meats, obviously all organic. I was eating all organic, but I wasn't going to farms to get some of these other things. And I learned about the Weston A. Price Foundation from his book, which basically I was able to heal my digestive tracked through following his information. But I learned about the Weston Price Foundation, and Weston Price traveled worldwide in the 1930s before processed food. And he had discovered through his brother-in-law, who worked for National Geographic, he saw all these pictures of beautifully healthy people of all different races that were being studied. And he was a prominent, very famous dentist actually in Ohio. And he was baffled by the fact that these people not only looked so healthy, but their teeth, their mouth, the teeth were wide, and he was always fixing cavities and putting braces in mouths. And so his patients not only had crooked and crowded teeth and cavities, but they also had poor health to go with it. So he traveled the world, and he found 12 populations of people that had perfect health, perfect structure. They had no dental caries. They didn't get chronic illness of any kind, even though there were illnesses going around the world like tuberculosis. Nobody was getting tuberculosis there. Nobody was suffering from any chronic ailments. So they all ate different diets. He studied American Indian tribes, certain American Indian tribes. He studied people in the Swiss Alps. He studied Gaelic people. He studied Eskimos. He studied Polynesian people. They all ate different diets, but he found that there were basic in their diet things in their diets that were the same. And actually, he found out that without adequate amounts of vitamin A and D, that you would not absorb the nutrients from your food. He found that these cultures actually ate a diet high in saturated fats that were from either animals or coconut. He found that if you didn't eat enough fat, that you wouldn't absorb the nutrients from your food. And then they ate no processed food. They ate no sugar in terms of just, any processed sugars. Some of them were entirely meat eating, raw meat. Eskimos ate raw meat. In the Swiss Alps, they largely ate dairy from grass-fed cows and fermented like kefir and cheeses, and they had especially fermented, actually rye bread that was very nutrient dense, bone broth soups. They and then other cultures had mostly a meat diet, but it was all from meat that they had caught themselves, fish. So what I did is I got connected to the Weston Price Foundation, and I started following a diet kind of like of the Swiss Alps, and I have completely gotten rid of any pain. Now for 20 years, I've been really, really healthy. I wrote a book called Performance Without Pain. I've given over 100 seminars around the United States and in London, England, and I've helped people through this work and studying Weston Price's work to recover from very serious digestive disorders. But I want to add to this that also I believe I was mercury toxic. When I was born with severe colic, and my mother worked in a dental office. And so she worked with the dental amalgams, which the filling material, it has about 40% mercury in it. I don't know if you're aware of it. I'm hoping most of you don't have silver fillings in your mouth. But I believe that's how my gut got damaged, because mercury is one of the most toxic metals on the planet, and why they put it in your mouth, I have no idea. But since then, I had all my amalgams removed. And I also did a lot of, because of my diet, which is high in probiotic foods like homemade kefir, I make my own sauerkraut, and I drink bone broth made from pastured animals, pastured chickens. You can get recipes in my book. Because of that, my body's naturally detoxing a lot of the heavy metals. We have a lot of heavy metals coming down in the sky. You see spraying going on in the sky that's full of aluminum. This is also highly toxic to the body. But I think today it's a really difficult thing to stay healthy amongst this toxic environment that we live in. But the best thing that you can do, I think, from my experience, is cut out processed food. I tell people to cut out sugar and grains and maybe study a paleo diet. Not every diet is good for every person, but I'm just saying what has worked for literally in the 10 years or almost 20 years that my book has been out and I've helped people around the world. These principles of Dr. Price are infallible. And if you eliminate all processed foods and you source your foods, go to farms, co-ops. The Weston Price Foundation has can give you sources for raw milk if you're interested. As I say, I culture it into kefir and drink that every day. It's a fantastic food. If you source your food and try to get as high quality of food as possible, I think that you will eliminate many of the issues with chronic inflammation and therefore injury. My book again is called Performance Without Pain. I also have a book on acid reflux. If you have acid reflux, it can help you. Singers who get acid reflux can lose their career. When I had acid reflux, I was nauseous and felt like I was going to vomit all the time, and trying to perform like that was terrible. But when you source your foods and eat a whole foods diet, you can prevent a lot of chronic injury, chronic pain just from doing that. So I want to open this up to questions that people might have. I'm looking through the chat, and let's see.
Someone asks, how should we make a nutrition program as a clarinetist?
Well, I think, as you heard, 4 of us are saying quite unique things. So I feel that it's good to get information from a lot of sources. I mean, I personally feel like the Weston A. Price Foundation, because it's helped thousands and thousands of people around the world recover from health problems, it's worth an investigation into what Weston Price did, and looking at your own diet and saying, well, what could I be contributing to in my diet to some of the issues that I have. Not everything that you have physically happening to you is caused by diet, but all disease begins in the gut. So if you have a chronic problem and you are always in pain and you're getting massages and you're going to the chiropractor and you're taking anti-inflammatories, you have to say, well, what is, this is not going away with what I'm doing. So what can I look at to see, is there something more going on? Is there something going on with my digestion? Does anybody else have something to add to that question?
I'd like to probably say a few words. There's a reason you're there where you are there. The person that you either learning with or you're working with or performing with, start with those. It has always worked for me. Starting inquiring from those people that are around you, they're gonna refer you, and eventually you'll probably find a source that you need to. I mean, one of the reasons you're here too, because you may find sources that you've been looking for. So this is how it worked for me, whether it's a mental health, physical health, diet, or anything else in the performance arena. So that's what I would suggest. We are so different from each other. We have so different, unique needs and really sometimes those needs only being answered through either referral or series of referral. It's a research. For me, it was a research, and it seems like for all of us, it's been a research. But we have covered 4 different and very differing aspects of nutrition, health, and mental health, and the insights that we gave, and also those answers that we put in the chat and asking the question can also lead you to another referral that might be actually the solution or part of the solution for your question.
So does anybody else have anything to add to that, or another short question, because we just have 5 minutes?
There is one question from Katie Morrell in the question and answer.
Okay.
I'm typing up something small, but if anyone can verbally answer that.
Where is it? Because is it farther up?
So this.
Oh, sorry.
Can you just read the question, and then we'll, because I can't see it.
The question is, for those following very specific diets, how do you manage traveling for work while still following your protocols? I find it very difficult to be away from home and managing diets such as these.
I actually went on tour when I was very, very sick, and I did not want to not eat the foods that I needed to keep from having severe diarrhea. And luckily I was in one place for a while, and I brought my own food in a cooler, and I brought a little hot plate. Luckily at the time, that was a way for me to eat the foods I needed. But if you're traveling, I think that sometimes you can source your foods to grocery stores, like health food stores in the area, and try to eat as much of your own food that you would normally eat when you're away from home, or maybe do research on local restaurants that might have your needs met. That's what I did.
Yeah, you'd be surprised nowadays, a lot of restaurants have gluten-free items, or a lot of people are on special diets. So if you research some of the restaurants before you go, check out, as Ms. Pirtle was saying, the local grocery stores. You can do pretty well. Also, this energy shake that I referred to, you can also get it in little packets, or you can put it in little baggies and take it along with you. So there are more options than may appear.
That's great. Yeah, so don't be afraid to bring your own food. Find a way to bring at least some of your own food. And then you can supplement when you get there. You can either go to a grocery store or find restaurants, or maybe even if you know somebody in the area, like a student or a family, they can help you. A lot of hotels even have a kitchen you can use if you need to cook your own food. One thing you don't want to do is get sick when you're traveling. So I think we are out of time, but I want to thank everybody who participated on the panel for all of your incredible insight and information, and all the people that are joining us today. And feel free to contact us and ask more questions if you have them. And thank you, Jessica, and Mary Druhan, for having this panel be possible.
Thank you all for joining us. We'll be starting another panel at 11:30, but we have to close this session out to start that one. So we'll go ahead and get this done. If you missed the first portion, please look soon on our YouTube channel. You'll see this video there, and be sure to contact the panelists if you have any questions about the content they've discussed today. Thank you, and we'll see you again in just a few minutes.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.